Hello, my name is Ralf Pirzl. I have been involved in business and politics for many years. And today I want to challenge a common assumption. Most people believe that Donald Trump's America First policy is bad for Europe. But what if the opposite is true? What if, in the long run, America First could actually make Europe stronger and not in the way you expect? Let's break it down. First, we need to understand the impact of pressure. Over the last years, Europe has faced constant criticism. Criticism from the United States, criticism from Donald Trump, attacks on European leaders, attacks on NATO contributions, attacks on economic policies. At first glance, this looks like a problem. But in reality, pressure creates reaction, and reaction creates change. For decades, Europe has relied heavily on the United States. Especially in terms of security, NATO has been the backbone of European defense, and the United States has carried a large part of that burden. This created a comfortable situation for Europe, too comfortable. Because when protection is guaranteed, incentive disappears, investment slows down, strategic thinking weakens. And that is exactly what happened. Europe became dependent, not just politically, but also militarily. Most European countries built their defense systems around US support, and more importantly, around US military hardware. But now that is changing. Trump's America First approach sends a clear message. You are on your own, and that message forces Europe to wake up. For the first time in decades, European leaders are starting to think differently. They are starting to understand one thing. If Europe wants to be strong, it must act as one, not as individual countries, but as a unified power. And this is where the real shift begins, because unity is Europe's biggest strength. But historically, Europe has struggled with coordination, different interests, different policies, different priorities. Trump's pressure is accelerating something that was already needed: coherence, strategic alignment, and long-term thinking. Now let's move to the economic side, because this is where it gets interesting. Defense spending is often seen as a cost, and in many ways it is. Money that could go to healthcare, education, social programs, but there is another side to it. Defense is also an economic engine. It creates jobs, hundreds of thousands of jobs. Engineers, manufacturers, researchers, entire industries are built around it. And right now, a large part of that money leaves Europe. It goes to the United States through military purchases, equipment, technology, systems. But what if that money stayed in Europe? What if Europe invested in its own defense industry? Pan-European companies, cross-border cooperation, shared development. That would change everything. It would create a new industrial base, a stronger economy, and more independence. This is not just about security. It is about sovereignty, economic sovereignty, strategic sovereignty. Now let's talk about something even bigger. A European army? For years this idea was discussed, but never seriously implemented. Why? Because it was not necessary. The US was there, but now that is changing. Trump's worldview is accelerating this discussion. If the United States becomes less predictable, Europe needs its own structure, its own command, its own defense identity. And that means one thing: integration, real integration, not just political, but military. Now let's move to trade, because America First is not just about defense. It is also about economics, tariffs, trade pressure, negotiation tactics. At first, this looks like a direct threat to Europe. But again, there is a second layer. Internal European trade is not as efficient as it should be. There are still barriers, regulatory differences, fragmentation, inefficiencies between countries. And in many cases, these internal barriers create more economic disruption than external tariffs. So when pressure comes from the outside, it forces Europe to look inside, to simplify, to integrate, to remove obstacles. And that creates a stronger internal market, a more competitive Europe. And this is not just happening in Europe. Other countries are reacting in similar ways. Canada, for example, has started adapting its strategy, reducing dependency, strengthening internal systems, looking for resilience. Because that is the key word: resilience. In today's world, dependence is a weakness, flexibility is strength, and pressure creates adaptation. So what are we really seeing? Is America First anti-Europe, or is it unintentionally pro-Europe? Because by forcing Europe to act, it is making Europe stronger, more independent, more coordinated, more strategic. This does not mean the process is easy or painless. It requires investment, it requires political courage, and it requires change. But in the long run, it may be exactly what Europe needed: a wake-up call, a push toward unity, a push toward independence. So the real question is this: will Europe take advantage of this moment, or will it fall back into old patterns? Because the opportunity is there, but only if it is used. If you want to understand global politics without noise, subscribe to Nexopol and tell me in the comments: is America First weakening Europe or forcing it to become stronger?